Right, good morning guys. Today we're going to be doing the creaming method. So the first thing that I'm going to be making lemon slices with mine, but the first thing that we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the creaming method. Now there's lots of science behind this one, so I'm going to try and simplify it as much as I possibly can for you. The first thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at the different kinds of fat that we can use for cake making. And I'll tell you the reasons why I like the fat that I use, but everybody, guys, it is a personal preference and what you think your results turn out the best with. So the first we're going to look at is butter, and I always use salted butter, guys, and again, that's a personal preference. I know a lot of chefs who don't. They use plain butter and then they add a little bit of salt if they feel like it, but I like to use butter. Now, it's very important to actually understand the content and what these different butters and fats contain. Butter has got a very low percentage of water, which is why it's quite solid, guys. And that is, I like that. I add any liquid that I want to my cakes and things like that. If I think it needs a little bit of more liquid, I will add milk, etc. But mostly why I like butter or using butter is because of the flavor of it, and I like the flavor that it gives my cakes. But the most important is that it's got a lower percentage of water or liquid or buttermilk, because there's a combination of all that in all these different fats. Now, the next one we're going to have a look at, which is a very popular option, is stork. They call it baking fat, they call it baking blocks. You get store-owned brands like Tesco's brands and things like that. But today we're going to use stork. It is, well, today I'm going to talk about stork. I'm not going to use it. I never buy stork because I don't like the ingredients, and I'll tell you why I don't like that. So if we flip it over, you will see, I don't know if you can actually read on your screen. Let me try and get it into focus for you. All right, but I will tell you what it's got in it. Stork is mainly, most margarines are made up of vegetable oils, and vegetable oils in varying quantities. Now, most of the vegetable oils that are used are rapeseed or sunflower oil, which is fine. But in stork, one of the ones that is used is palm oil. Now, I don't know if you can read that. I'm going to try and come a little bit closer. But palm oil is one that I dislike intensely, and that is because palm oil comes from forests. And this is why our forests are being denuded, guys, and our forests are being taken down because of plantations, and they are cutting down forests to make way to grow palm, because there's such a demand for it, and that's part of why we have such a bad effect on global warming. So I don't actually use stork at all in my baking. So there are other brands that don't have palm oil, so keep a lookout for that. Please make sure that you try not to use palm or products with palm oil in it. Now, the other important part about this is water and buttermilk. So they've added buttermilk for flavor, but the main difference between butter and margarine is this is an animal fat. This is made from cream, guys, pure cream from a cow, from milk. And this one over here is made from vegetable oils, purely vegetable oils. They do add some buttermilk, but that is just the liquid that is formed when butter is made, and that is for flavor only. So it does make a nice cake. I will not dispute that. It does make a nice cake. And again, it comes down to personal preference as to whether you want to use it or not. Then, just to show you, now my kitchen is incredibly hot, guys. And if I forget some days to actually put margarine back into the fridge, then this is what happens, and I'm going to show you what it is that happens. Sorry, somebody's trimming their hedge outside. I'm just going to close my door. Hold on a moment. Great, that's a little bit better. So just to show you, this is Lurpak. You get lots of different kinds. You get I can't even remember all of them have gone straight out of my head now, but you get different kinds. But they are a combination of butter and vegetable oil. Oops, and water or buttermilk. So this one here has got milk fat and rapeseed oil. So it's a combination of butter, rapeseed oil, and buttermilk. So whereas this one is only made from vegetable oils, this one has got some butter in it, but it is blended with oil, and the reason, and water, buttermilk. The reason they do that is to make it softer so that you can use it straight out of the fridge. And that's the main difference. Anything that has got water in it will actually be softer, and you will be able to use it straight out of the fridge. That's why margarines are also softer. Whereas butter, you will have to leave, and I'm going to explain that to you as well, so that we can get room temperature. I can explain room temperature to you as well. So just to show you how much liquid is in here, I was saying my kitchen is very, very hot. So if I forget something out of the fridge, especially something like margarine, it tends to melt, and then it will separate out into its components, guys. So you'll get a layer of oil, you'll get a layer of butter, melted butter, and you will also get the buttermilk. So this is what this is in the corner here, the buttermilk. So it will all separate out into its component parts. So the bit in the middle over there is the vegetable oil, and the more solidy bits are the butter. So that content over there, that liquid content, does make for a change in the texture of your baked product. Now it will also make a nice cake, guys. Both of these will make nice cakes, even with a higher water content. And this one more so because it has the flavor of butter as well. But it's all up to you. Try it, decide which one you like best, and then go for the one that you like best. Now I'm going to, hope you guys can see this. I have softened my butter. In fact, all my ingredients for today are at room temperature. Now, just to show you what room temperature is, if you see, if I push that, it just gives and leaves a little imprint. Got a little bit of grease on my thumb, but it's nice soft butter, but it is not so soft that it's just going to disintegrate when I start using it in my product. So that's what we mean by room temperature. I'll show you this one. Right, if we push that, it's got no give, right? It doesn't make a dent. All right, so that's still too cold to use. Okay guys, so there was a reason I was going on about the temperature of the butter for the creaming method. It is a very, very important part of the creaming method. And because of that, everything really that you are going to put into your cake mixture should be at room temperature. So take the eggs out the night before, the flour, the lemon, any flavorings that you're going to have, take them out the night before so that they are at room temperature. If you are going to be baking and don't know you're going to be baking the next day, then at least leave them out for an hour or two to come up to a better temperature. So now, the reason we have got room temperature butter or softer butter is the creaming method is incorporating the reason that we are going to mix the fat and the sugar together, and there are many reasons for doing the creaming method. The main one is to incorporate air into your mixture, so you're going to have a light and fluffy mixture. So we're going to incorporate air in different ways today, but we're going to start with a very important one, which is creaming the butter and sugar together. I'm going to show you at different stages what it looks like and what it should look like when all or enough air has been incorporated into the mixture. So I'm going to use a little hand mixer for this, but it's perfectly, you can do it with a wooden spoon, or it will just take you a little bit longer. You can also do it with a whisk, but I do find that a little bit more difficult than a wooden spoon as well. You need a little bit of elbow grease for that method. Right, so it's going to incorporate air into the mixture, which is going to change the color of your mixture. It's going to get lighter. It's going to be able to form little air bubbles inside the mixture, which is going to add air, and the whole texture of this will become light and fluffy. So it'll be incorporated, everything will be mixed together well, and it will be light and fluffy and airy. Now, it's very important to note that we are trying to make a a mixture today with the fat, and we are incorporating liquid. Now there are two kinds of mixtures that we are going to, or solutions that we're going to end up with, and the way in which we do this is going to affect the overall texture of our cake. So if the butter is cold, it is not going to be able to absorb and form a barrier around the little air bubbles. It's going to be very difficult for it to do that, and the mixture is not going to combine together as nicely. So that is why the temperature is so important. It must be plastic enough to be able to hold the air, and you're going to hear that term a lot, especially if you carry on with cooking into Key Stage 4. The butter must be plastic enough to be able to incorporate the air bubbles. Now conversely, well, the opposite is true as well. If your butter is too soft, it will also not be able to hold onto the air bubbles. So you do have to have just that lovely room temperature butter to be able to have the creaming method work very well. Now I'm going to mix this with the little electric mixer. Now guys, we normally do this on a medium speed in a high powered mixer, but this one, the tiny little mixers, the small little mixers, I don't find their speed is very high. So if you're using a very strong mixer like a stand mixer, use a medium speed. This one you can pretty much use any of speed, but don't use the lowest speed. Start on the lowest and then work your way up. And before I do that, I'm just going to incorporate a little bit of my butter, and then I'm going to start on a slow speed. I'm going to do this in real time, but I'm not going to talk because it's going to be very noisy. Okay, so here we go. Now, the first stage, you will see, you can see that that's mixed in, the sugar is mixed into the butter, but it's not where we want it to be, right? We have still got chunks of butter and we haven't incorporated a lot of air. It is not soft and fluffy, it's not combined completely yet. So we're now going to hike the speed up and we're going to mix this some more. So guys, now you can see that it's got a different texture once again. It is starting to come together. You can see that the color is changing. It is also becoming light and fluffy, lighter and fluffier. Halfway through, please make sure that you scrape down the edges of your bowl, because obviously that's going to prevent you from getting all the mixture in. If you don't have a spatula, just make sure that when you're using your wooden spoon, you get as much of the mixture down into the bowl as you possibly can. Right, now we're almost there, guys. You can see how much lighter it's gotten and how the texture of it has changed. So it's completely different. Can you see the difference between this over here and that over there? The color has changed. It's much lighter and fluffier. Now I'm going to do that one more time, and I'll do that off camera and then show you what it should look like at the end. Okay guys, so now you can see what the mixture should look like, and I'm just going to show you in comparison with the actual block of butter the difference in the color that we've achieved. So we've got a very light fluffy texture and it's much lighter, and also if you just take a little bit between your fingers and rub it, you should almost not feel the sugar crystals anymore. Right guys, so there we have it. I've just scraped my bowl down again, and now we're going to move on to the second part of the creaming method, and that is when we add the egg or the liquid. Now always crack the egg into a separate bowl. Now there's two different reasons for doing that. One, because it's easier to get the eggshell out of here than into your mixture, but also if you have an egg that is off, which guys I haven't found very often, but if it is off, then you haven't added it to your mix, and you don't have to start all over again, because you cannot save it in that case. It's more important when you are doing mixtures that contain a lot of eggs. Some cakes contain 6 eggs, and you don't want to waste that entire mix just because you've added the last egg and the last egg wasn't great. So now the next part of adding the liquid, now we've got a fat solution here. So what happens when we add liquid to fat? It separates, and generally the fat will float within the mixture. Now we want to try and avoid that, because we are trying to make a mixture that is really lovely and combined, but we want a water in fat solution. So we want the fat to surround the water. If we have it the other way around, it will curdle, and guys, that means it looks like scrambled eggs or cottage cheese, and we don't want that. We want a water in fat mix solution. Now when we have a relatively small amount of mixture, sometimes it will curdle regardless of what you do or how well you've done the creaming method. And in that case, guys, all you have to do is add a little bit of flour to stabilize the mixture again. So I've got my flour ready just in case, and I've got my egg. Eggs are amazing things, guys. Egg yolk contains fat but also lecithin, and that's going to help this mixture combine. It is also going to add more air. So our first bit of air, adding air or incorporating air, is mixing the fat and the sugar together, incorporating the little air bubbles. And now when we're using the egg white, that is also going to incorporate more air, and the fat inside the egg and the lecithin inside the egg is also going to help those fats and liquids combine. Right, so when we have a water in fat solution, the water is suspended inside the fat, and this is what we're trying to achieve. So I'm going to mix that, and then we're going to see where that takes us. So guys, that when you start to mix, it will look like it's curdling. It'll look like scrambled eggs, but you've just started. So I promise you, the majority of times as you carry on mixing, it will come together. So guys, you see how quickly that happened? It's come together. There is no clear separation between the liquid and the fat. So we have achieved a water in fat solution. I'm going to do that for just a couple more minutes. I just wanted to show you the difference. So we didn't actually have to add any of our flour at this stage. Right, so we've got that nicely incorporated, and if you were making a cake that contained 4 eggs, a much larger mix than we've got today, then you would add the second egg now. You would do it until the same stage, and you will keep going, trying to keep this water in fat solution going. If it does curdle at any stage, just add a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of flour to stabilize your mixture once again. So if we add our liquid or our eggs too quickly, so if for example at the stage where we'd creamed, we then add all 4 eggs in one, if we were making a 4-egg cake, our fat solution would not be able to hold the liquid, and it would curdle, guys. So, and you would get a fat in water mix, and that is where the fat is suspended in a liquid, and that's not what we're trying to achieve with this method. We're trying to achieve the liquid suspended in the fat. All right, there is a clear distinction between those two. So now I've added that. Right, now the last bit of this is just bringing everything together, and that is adding all the other ingredients. Now if you were making a vanilla cake, you'd add that at this stage. I'm making a lemon slice, so I'm going to take the majority of my zest, guys. I'm going to leave a little bit for the icing over the top. I'm going to add my flour, and then I'm going to add the baking powder, and I'm going to add the milk. Now you have worked so hard to get air into that mixture. You do not want to destroy it at this stage. So the next bit, you are literally just going to mix until it's incorporated. Right guys, so that's my mixture. I've got a 20 by 20 centimeter tin here, and I'm going to pop my mixture into the center, guys, as close as you can get it. And please, one of the things that I really hate about TV chefs is that they leave everything behind. I hate that. Please clean your bowl, because otherwise this just goes down the drain and blocks up your drains, because the fat will solidify as soon as it gets cold. Right, so nice clean bowl and everything into your tin. Now I don't use a spatula for this next bit, because I find the spatula, the mixture sticks to it a lot more than using a spoon. Right, so I just take that off, and then I use a spoon, and just like we would make pizza or putting the tomato sauce on a pizza, we're going to go from the middle to the side, and we're gently going to coax the mixture. Don't take this and scrape it on the edge of your pan, because that will just burn, guys, and it makes it very difficult to clean the tin afterwards, especially if you don't get it into water straight away. So just coax the mixture into the sides and all the edges and the corners. Now what I like to do, because the edges of your cake cooks faster or bakes faster than the middle of your cake, I like to just make the middle of it a little bit lower than the outside, so that you get a more even cake. Not too much, guys, just a little. And then that is going to go into the oven for about 15 or 20 minutes. Right guys, so that's come out of the oven now, and I wanted to tell you how to tell when your cake is done. This is a cake slice, so it's slightly different to a cake that we would be now making a double layer. Firstly, you look at the sides of your cake, and if it's pulling away from the sides of the tin like this one is, it is done. Secondly, just touch the top of it, and if it springs back like a sponge, it's done. There is never a need to actually put something inside your cake like a skewer or a knife or anything like that to see if it's done. If it springs back up like that, like a little sponge, it is absolutely done, and you've got a nice golden color on the top. Now the last thing that we're going to do to finish off is we're going to add our lemon juice to some sugar, some caster sugar, and I've got the rest of the lemon zest here, which will add some more flavor, and we're just going to mix it. This has just come out of the oven, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spoon this over the top of my cake. You can puncture some holes if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary, and we're going to leave this cake so until it gets cool and all the lemon juice and the sugar is going to form a little crust over the top, which is absolutely lovely, guys. And we're going to do this while it's hot so that all the sugar melts, and you're going to leave this in the tin until the cake is cool, and then once it's cool you can then serve it up. So I'm just going to get that syrup all over the top of the cake. And there we go, guys. We have lemon slices Enjoy, let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon with the next recipe.